Doug, we've been hearing lots about how good the Ontario corn crop is. Is that a reality?
Well, it's yes, it is, John. The Ontario corn crop, I would say, looks very good overall. We've got we started out with probably a record planting conditions. Most of the corn, 95% of the corn was in by the 5th of May, and we got off to an excellent start. And that's always a good indication that the crop is going to be good if you can get it in and up and going. The 10th of May brought us a frost that actually desiccated or killed the first 2 leaves in a lot of cases in the southwest. And really, when we assess it now, and we had a good feeling that it wasn't going to affect the growing point, so that corn came out of it, and it's really never looked back. In June, we've seen some areas, particularly in the northern part of Ontario and the eastern part of Ontario, where they've had probably excessive rainfall, and in the extreme southwest in Essex County, where they've had extreme rainfall, and they struggled with a little bit of water damage there for a period of time. But we've had some subsequent heat the last week to 10 days, which has really brought that corn crop on, and overall, I would say in the real corn belt of Ontario, we look in really good shape.
Chest high?
I would say chest high to even over your head. In some cases in Kent County, we're seeing corn initiate tassel this week. So by Friday, Saturday of this week, we're going to see corn tasseling. There's a bit of concern in that area that we haven't had a lot of water in the last since the first part of June. So we're looking at 0.2 to 0.5 of an inch in some of those areas. And so some of the corn, particularly on headlands or any areas where it's a little bit tough conditions, it's starting to whip a little bit and show signs of drought. Now, that's not a bad thing at this time of year, because we can take a bit of drought prior to flowering. Corn, it'll initiate the size of it determines the size of the cob, the length, and the number of kernel rows, number of kernels in that 8 to 10 leaf stage. So we had ideal conditions for initiating that corn crop in that stage of the game. As we head into flowering, though, we need to alleviate some of that stress. So hopefully the forecast is for some rains to come in here Thursday night and Friday, and that'll alleviate some of that heat stress as we head into pollination. Because
that plant has planned essentially for to be potentially have a very large yield, and so but it still needs those groceries through the growing season.
Exactly. So if it's got good conditions now through pollination, and the corn crop's going to initiate pollen, and the silk integrity is going to be very important over this next week to 10 days. We're tracking 2 weeks ahead of normal yet, so that's we're in the first full week of July. So by the middle of July, we're going to see an awful lot of corn in full flower in Ontario.
What would you say are some of the, based on the conditions that we have had, what are some of the yield targets that farmers are in the real productive areas? What are some of the yield targets that farmers are talking about?
Well, I would say, we're gonna be looking at outstanding yield potential in Ontario if we can get this weather condition to cooperate with us. Probably in upwards of that 200 bushel range. But again, a lot of it's going to depend on Mother Nature and how we're treated in the next week to 10 days with moisture.
Let's just say, Doug, that we do get that drought. Let's just say that unfortunately, say that happens. Environment Canada has said we have the potential for a very hot summer. Precipitation is a lot more difficult to predict, but it could be dry as well. Mm-hmm. Where does that leave it? Is that a potential? We've gone from, boy, things look really good to things look very bad fast?
It could. I would say that right now, with the way that the corn looks and as fast a start that it's got, we could be looking at a loss potentially of 10 to 20% of yield potential if we head into
worst case scenario, if that happens.
Worst case scenario. But I really think that with the way that the corn crop looks right now, we're gonna look at average to above average yields for sure in Ontario. unless it's a
Yeah.
train wreck. But
Last year there was lots of talk about people pushing heat units.
Right.
And that traditionally has become very common across North America. Did that happen again this year?
I wouldn't say so much. I think people were really cognizant of what they were putting in the ground, and really we didn't see, and across the industry, whether they were in the fertilizer trade or in the ag chem trade, seed trade, they really didn't see a lot of guys plant a lot more corn than what they anticipated. And so corn acreage in Ontario, I think the rate is, or the prediction is that it's going to be flat to up very slightly. In the northern part of Ontario, though, it was kind of like the last song of the night. That's what the guys remembered most, was we had a lot of corn that was hard to dry, didn't reach maturity and so on. So no, they didn't push the window on their maturities on the corn at all. They kept to the heat units that is prescribed for their area, and that was pretty much it.
So unfortunately, though, if we have the ideal conditions through the whole summer and we get all this heat like Ontario's experiencing right now, it could put us back in that same situation next spring.
It could put us back in the same situation, because again, like I say, the last song of the night is what they remember. The last song that the band plays. So they're going to, if they've got that experience of having lots of heat and driving that yield, there's always going to be the question mark in the back of their mind. Well, what if I just pushed it a little bit more?
Exactly.
But I think we've got, overall, there's really good hybrids that really adapt to the conditions and will put out that yield that they're looking for. So farmers are very intelligent, and they're very savvy in terms of what they can and can't get away with, and they know pretty much how they're going to push the envelope on their own farms.
Okay, Doug, thanks a lot for joining us today.
Well, thank you, Sean, and it's been a pleasure.